There we go.
Born ready. All right.
How are you doing today, Dr. Major?
I'm doing pretty good. So formal, Dr. Major.
Well, it's so funny because with my team, when we're working on your accounts, it's always like Dr. They all call you Dr. Major. So I'm just like, he's Dr. Major. Sometimes I'm like, what is his first name? So yeah.
I always think of Dr. Major as my dad still.
Yeah.
Even though I've been a doctor, I don't know, for what, 15 years, it still sometimes feels a little bit, I don't know, it is what it is.
Yeah, I know when people are meeting me for the first time, they're like, Dr. Mulrooney, and I'm like, how about we go with Ange?
Do you ever get people, because your last name is a fairly famous last name in Canadian circles, at least. Do you ever get asked about a relationship or association with former Prime Minister?
Yes, from my generation and older.
Yeah.
The younger generation has no idea who Brian Mulrooney is.
Yeah, well, no, they just have to see the size of the chin and then they might remember, but...
I know, that's the thing.
Poor guy.
Yeah. Well, even my chin, I'm like, some days I look in the mirror and I'm like, oh my gosh, I feel like it's growing. Is there any relationship? I'm sure somewhere down the line, but his is 1-0 and mine is 2. Funny story. My in I guess elementary school. Yeah. My mom always said, like when people asked her the question, she was a little bit saucy and she was like, "Yeah, I'm his mother," because she had prematurely gray hair, and it was funny because people believed her for one thing because she looked like she was old, even though he was actually older than her. And then I was like, yeah, he's my uncle, because I just thought that was a smart thing to say. And I didn't I'm a terrible liar, so I didn't think people actually believed me. But when it came to our grade 12 graduation, there were people who were like, is your uncle here today? And I'm like, is your uncle here today? Like, why would my uncle be here? And they're like, well, Brian, why is the Prime Minister here? And I'm like, oh my gosh. I had no idea that, people were actually thinking that this was true. So yeah, I felt a little bit bad about that, but also had to laugh because it was pretty darn funny. So
the moral of the story is be careful with your lies.
Be careful with your lies.
Little white ones.
Yeah. Well, the thing is, I turn red and I can't lie, and my face can't lie as well. So it's a good problem to have. I guess it keeps me honest.
So you're found out in an embarrassing way. Is that kind of what it came down to?
Yeah. I was like, oh man, I deceived people for all this time. I feel like a jerk. So.
And that's why we know you're not a jerk, because you felt guilty afterwards.
This is true, right? Oh man. So I had a lot of people, I don't know if people reached out to you, but I had a lot of people reach out to me after what went down yesterday. So
yeah. And what were some of the people saying? Feedback, comments?
Comments was like they were amazed by how real and raw we were actually able to get, and how logical you were in guiding the whole thing. So so it was a good thing. And I keep thinking, I woke up this morning going, oh my gosh, I cried online yesterday. That was awesome.
Well, give it a couple of days. I'm sure my turn will be next.
Yes, I can't wait.
I may be
not
much
competitive at all, right? I'm like, I cried, now you have to cry.
I may be much less consolable when it happens. Just full disclaimer.
Yeah, for sure.
I don't know. This whole thing is kind of weird for everybody. So I think, it is what it is. We feel what we feel, and we have to be able to allow it to come through.
Yeah. Yeah. And the thing is, we're not even close to being done with this whole situation. No. And there's lots of little surprises that we know are going to be coming around the corner. So.
Yep. Anyone else that's being affected by it there's the way that we all know, and just general life is different. And then there's also our community of dentists that we're having all the unique challenges that we're having. Mm-hmm. Any other kind of weird and unusual ones that you're facing or seeing?
With the conversations that I'm having, it's like the stuff I talked about, like the guilt and whatnot, seems to be what a lot of people are feeling, because they've got their team members' lives in their hands. Yep. And they don't want to have an ill effect on them by any means. And unfortunately, it is we talked about that yesterday. It is what it is. Unfortunately, there's not much we can do. This was an unexpected situation that has come about, and it's hard for people to know what to do with this, because this is unprecedented for us. Even if, you look at the crystal ball of what was happening in Europe before it hit here. And so we got a little bit of warning as to what was coming, but still I think people are still just kind of in shock.
Yeah, but like, it was what, a week of warning that we had, really, and that was about it.
Yeah. Well, it felt like Friday things started to get real, and then by Tuesday it was like, you guys are shut down.
Yeah.
And now there's been even further shutdowns, right? Like in Quebec and Ontario, it's completely shut down. Yeah, so it's a lot for people to deal with. Hi, Jeff in Dublin. He's had a long day and he's having a glass of wine with us.
I still haven't figured out how to get this going as well live over on my own page. I'm not seeing anything here.
Refresh your page and you might be able to see it.
Okay.
Yeah.
That's
sometimes
usually
it works, sometimes it doesn't.
Fix for most things.
Yeah.
Ooh, so I see something videos live on the left column there. Let's try that.
You may have to open the video itself. We are eventually going to have this mastered, we promise. The problem is you can't, like, every mistake you make on here gets recorded.
Yeah, so. I know, but you know what? That's kind of half the fun of it, is figuring out as we go along. I mean, isn't that exactly what all of us are doing right now anyway?
Yes, we're bumbling through life right now.
No, I'm still not seeing how to figure it out over here.
Okay, well.
Oh, here we go. Let's try that. It's doing something. It's thinking about doing something.
Hi, Jeff. Hi, Marty. Okay.
Well, my screen has you frozen like this.
Oh, that's awesome. Yeah.
We'll find out if it works.
There's always so many sexy snapshots of my face on social media.
I know. It's all of us are like that.
So we're going to talk today about kind of the physiological response that we're going through right now that are causing us to really feel and sense the way that we're feeling. So do you want to go a little bit into that?
Sure. All of us have gone through these trainings, understand that one of the things we're feeling whenever stress comes up, our body's immediate physiologic response is to dump more cortisol in our body. Cortisol is a stress response hormone. So cortisol does a couple of different things. Number one is it reroutes a lot of energy. Its purpose, rather than going to the specifics, let's just understand the purpose. The purpose of cortisol is to allow you to survive. You've got two real survival hormones in your body. The first one is adrenaline, which is let's survive seconds to minutes, fight or flight. The second one is cortisol, which is let's survive days to weeks. Your body is not thinking about months to years when you're in a cortisol state. You're really thinking about short term, because if you don't live through the next week, it doesn't really matter what's happening 6 months from now. With that kind of frame in mind, the rest of everything else that cortisol does starts to make sense. So it starts to take energy away from your immune system. It starts to redirect it towards the actions of getting things moving along as quickly as you can. And when you begin to have that kind of immune weakness, we can all see right away what's going to start to happen. When we're thinking about the physiology and the science that sits inside of our body of well-being, there's two main things we want to be thinking about. How do we decrease that cortisol, that stress response hormone? And the second one is how do we increase serotonin, which is that part of your brain that says life is good. I need to take advantage of all the things that are around me. We know a lot about serotonin as well by what happens when we're lacking serotonin. Whoa, there you go, came back. So for example, people who are really depressed tend to have low levels of serotonin, and the most common antidepressants are these serotonin reuptake inhibitors. Basically, it blocks your body from being able to clear up the serotonin, so it hangs around longer around your neurons, has a longer lasting effect, so that you start to feel well. The problem with these SSRIs is where you need to have your body feeling better with serotonin is up here inside the CNS. But of course, you have that protective layer called the blood-brain barrier. So it takes forever to get any of these outside sources of serotonin into your brain. That's why when you are taking antidepressants, it takes about a month to 6 weeks before it starts to have a therapeutic benefit, and your doctor can start to give you some direction about what you need to do in increasing doses or decreasing doses. It's also the reason, because you have a lot of serotonin receptors in the rest of your body, that the unwanted side effects of serotonin start to happen, because it doesn't have to cross that brick wall inside of your brain. Wow, that sounds really bad.
The brick wall.
Are we back?
Yep. So you ended at brick wall and then you were frozen.
Yeah. So that blood-brain barrier is like a brick wall to our brain. So we don't have to take it hard when somebody says that we've got a thick skull, because it's kind of true. We all do. But we have all that serotonin sitting on our body, and that's where we feel weight gain and all the other stuff. So if you really want to have a maximum benefit, it's like, how do you get the serotonin going upstairs endogenously, the stuff that your own body creates? Mm-hmm. That's really becomes the frame that we start to understand every other action and discipline and behavior of how we can get ourselves in the best possible place. Serotonin really gets your mind to be able to see everything that's happening around you. Cortisol decreases your vision, serotonin increases it. Mm-hmm. And when we're in these challenging times like we are right now, knowing that, yeah, okay, you're in the stress of trying to take care of your practice and everything else that's happening in this moment, or trying to figure out how to take care of your family in this moment, that's going to last, a couple of weeks as we start to figure out what our new normal is, at least for the short term. But we all have our practices and rest of life to be considering of what's going to happen after this is over too. Mm-hmm. In this moment of challenge and chaos is where we have the opportunity to begin to move our businesses and a lot of different things forward, not immediately, but begin laying the foundations for what can become a long-term success. For us to see those opportunities requires us to make that shift inside of our bodies. So over the next couple of weeks, we're going to be going deeper and deeper into each of the specific kinds of behaviors that we can do that increases serotonin and decreases cortisol.
So if someone is in a long stress period,
yeah.
For example, you're going through a divorce or a lawsuit or something like that, and you can feel the kick in of the adrenaline, right? And sometimes the adrenaline is keeping you going and really keeping you alive and awake and responsive to everything that's happening. Yeah. At what point does it shift over to cortisol? And what would we be feeling to feel that shift in our body?
Oh boy. A lot of what happens at that point is we start to feel more, the adrenaline gives us that surge of energy that we feel in the moment. So that when the surge starts to pack off and we're left with more of that drain feeling, that's more when the cortisol is really starting to take over. Mm-hmm. That's where the weight gain starts to come in. That's where your muscles starting to shrink and become less functional kick in. That's where our ability to be aware of our environment starts to diminish too, because we don't have that same level of capacity. So that back and forth between serotonin or between adrenaline and cortisol, that's what you're going to start to feel in that shift. I think we start to I always find I feel really fatigued at that point. Mm-hmm.
So how long can we run on adrenaline before our bodies naturally will shut that down and switch over to a different pathway?
Usually we start to feel it within a couple of minutes to hours. When I have the biggest adrenal responses, they can last me a couple hours until you have a new stimulus that keeps it going. So if your mind is stuck on whatever is happening right now, you could keep that adrenaline response going for a lot longer. And so then we end up with sleepless nights, which then increases the amount of cortisol that's happening at the same time as the adrenaline and begins the cascade, so that our bodies really aren't operating at the full capacity of what we're capable of.
Right. Yeah. And when we have these responses to save ourselves, our bodies are only letting us operate in whatever way we need to. Everything that's extraneous is kind of blocked out.
So this is where you
experienced during stress as well, right?
Yeah, I mean, this is where you see all the crazy videos that are coming out on social media now of like grown people scrapping over the last roll of toilet paper in the grocery store. And, the one person's got a full cart full of it, and the other person's got none, and they're fist fighting over one more roll. And you have to think, oh God, really? Is this what humanity's come to?
Yeah, we're just seeing it. Anne was asking, hi Anne, she's saying, does it also make us eat more? So it makes us gain weight, but does it actually stimulate us to eat to soothe ourselves?
I think when we feel really shitty, we want to look for, so there's other things that are happening in terms of our experience of what we would consider to be happiness in our brain. There's 4 major chemicals in our brain that will allow us to feel happy. One of them is only serotonin. Serotonin is really this sense of well-being and opportunity. The second one is oxytocin. This is a feeling of social connection and physical touch with people that we care about the most. It's a sense of deep community belonging. The other 2 are dopamine, which is really a reward-driven system. So for when you've accomplished a big task, and I know, Angela, you're in the middle of some huge tasks. So when you cross that little item off your to-do list and you got that yes that kicks in, and you feel really good for a little while, that's a dopamine kick. And it's good because what it does is it gets us driven towards accomplishing things.
Yeah.
And then the last one,
midnight last night. We crossed the finish line with project number 1. So.
And then you're able to sleep feeling pretty good about yourself because you had this like, yes, I did it, that kicks in. And that is a feeling of happiness. It's a feeling of well-being to go, I really accomplished something meaningful. And then the last one is norepinephrine, which functions really similar to dopamine. Shoot, what was your question again? I was laying all this for a frame up. You were asking
the question was about eating more. Like, we know it helps, it adds weight and we get weaker and this kind of stuff, but does it stimulate us to self-soothe?
So it's not so much that cortisol causes you to eat more, but you start to feel really shitty when you feel a lot of cortisol in your body for a long time. And so we start looking for other ways of feeling good. Dopamine is not only something that we get from checking off the to-do list, but when we eat food, we also get a dopamine kick. So this is where people who are depressed tend to also overeat because they're looking for some way to self-soothe. When you go through a really nasty breakup or something goes totally sideways in business, people who use food to self-medicate, this is really what they're doing, is they're getting more and more dopamine that is going in their body. The problem with dopamine is it's also highly addictive. This is essentially what heroin is to your body too, and what gambling and what even social media does to us. It hijacks that dopamine system so that instead of we're really focusing on tasks to accomplish that feel good and like, yes, and we kind of look back at it, it's like, well, let's just go for more Ben and Jerry's then. And then the cortisol is like, oh, we're going to survive for the whole lot. And so we pack it away as fat. And so it's that two things together. It's not the cortisol directly that causes us to eat more, but we feel shitty. And then we look for something else to self-soothe, which then hits on the dopamine side of things. And then we overeat.
What about the people like me who, when they're stressed out, like can't even eat anything, can't even look at food? Like some people self-soothe, some people are just, that would actually make me feel worse to eat Ben and Jerry's.
Our stomachs all have these different responses. So the other thing that can happen when we are in times of stress is that our breathing changes. And so we end up having a higher level of oxidative stress and buildup. Basically, when your body is using energy, it creates waste. Just like your car has an exhaust pipe, your blood is supposed to clear out all of that extra waste. If it builds up, it causes more and more inflammation as well. If you have the inflammation, you have a sensitive stomach to begin with, then all of the little like you got these microvilli, which are super, super sensitive type of skin cells inside of your stomach that don't like inflammation. And so if you've got a sensitive tummy to begin with, you're not going to want to eat when you get stressed. But if you're like me, you're
like, bring it on.
I'm the bring it on guy.
I'll eat your food for you, Angela.
That's been my challenge. I have to monitor my weight challenge, not the keep it on challenge.
Well, we have our 1 arm push-up challenge that you have to be ready for next week.
Oh God, how am I supposed to get 1 arm that buff in a week?
I don't know, but it's possible.
We already know you're going to win the flexing competition. That's just
I like winning. I don't know the chemistry behind that because I am super competitive.
And I think your horsepower to weight ratio is in much better position than mine. I might be able to bench press more than you, but you don't have as much weight to move around either. Yeah,
I'm a little elf. Okay, so that was the cortisol part of it. So with the serotonin side of it, when people go into depression, like we don't have proper reuptake, serotonin is getting depleted as well. Why does the body do that? Because that seems like a very self-destructive thing. Instead of protecting you from the stress that's around you, it's almost helping you to succumb to it.
I honestly don't have the answer to that.
Okay.
I know an awful lot. From my own personal journey of going through divorce and feeling that, and I think anybody who's been in that situation knows that you usually feel really down coming out. When I got out of my situation, I knew I felt down and I went into this position of, I'm not willing to stay here. What is it that I have to do to get out of it? I didn't take a long time to figure out why do I have the problem. I just wanted to know what I had to do to fix it. And I don't want to speculate. I'm not a neurobiologist. I may be a doctor, but I'm not a neurobiologist. So I prefer not to pretend to know answers I don't actually know the answer to.
Yeah, that's fair. That's just one I've always thought about because I'm like, if our bodies are supposed to be keeping us safe, why aren't they keeping us safe?
If I were to speculate, again, grain of salt, so pure speculation. Okay. When we get depressed, a lot of the depression activity is we begin to we move less. Literally, physically, we move less. We isolate from our friends. We pull away as a protective mechanism, thinking if I avoid conflict, then I'm going to be better off. But then we also pull away from the healthy interactions too. What we'll get into as we go deep. And I think we're back.
Yep. So you were going to say as we go into this and get deeper. And then you went funny.
Okay, so as we go into it deeper, we're going to talk more about serotonin, how to increase serotonin. So if we're becoming increasingly inactive, literally moving our body is one way to increase serotonin in our brain. So because we're depressed and because we're down, serotonin will begin to drop because we're trying to self-protect. Then we have this down regulation of serotonin because we're not moving as much as we're trying to like isolate ourselves from the stresses and the pressures of the world. And I think it's more that the serotonin is the result of the other things we're doing trying to protect than it is that the body's like, whoa, turn down serotonin, let's destroy ourselves.
Yeah. There was a comment kind of and a question here from our buddy in Dublin. So cabin fever is what a lot of people are suffering from, which I think we should actually do some research for tomorrow about what causes cabin fever. Because right now, like those healthy things that we would normally do, like if you're like me, you're stuck at home by yourself with your hamster. There's only so much social interaction I can have with my little hamster before I feel like I'm going insane talking to myself.
But Sai's loving it.
Yeah, but Sai, actually, he's like, Mom, can you just leave me alone? I'm tired of being played with. He's like, I want to sleep. But he's the best when he's asleep, so it's cute. But anyway, with the lack of social interaction, like there's a lot of things, like talking with people on here is one thing, but not actually having that physical contact where we release oxytocin is part of what is probably causing some things. And there was a question about, with the chemical imbalance, would this be considered short-term depression with what we're starting to experience now if people are having cabin fever and they're not able to have those interactions?
Again, I'm pure speculation, so I want to take everything with a grain of salt, but I think that the cabin fever, because when I feel cabin fever, I get antsy and irritable and I start pacing and moving around. I think if anything, it's our body's physiologic response to try to keep us healthy is what a lot of what we consider to be cabin fever is that urge to move and do something again. And if we resist that urge and don't dive into it, then our body begins to down regulate all of the activity that would normally be there. And I think that's when we would cross the threshold into depression. Right. I don't think that people are experiencing a lot of depression yet. There's anxiety going on right now for sure, which is different than depression. I think that depression is probably more likely going to start settling in about a week or two from now. Yeah. And so I think even with the stuff that we're going to do right now, to start having some way, and I don't know how we do this, Angela, we'll kind of spitball as we go, but find some ways to do some challenges with the ideas that we're doing so that we can develop a bit of a community of people saying, hey, track your results and lean in so that we're doing this not just by ourselves, but doing it as a group. Yeah.
We could piggyback on the Level Up with Ange challenge. And so everyone can maybe we could set an intention for the challenge for the week where it's like, okay, you're going to get X number of minutes of I'll design the exercise stuff. If that's okay. You can design the mindfulness stuff. I'll stick with what I know. You stick with what you know. I'm not
fair enough.
So I mean, we can have that duality of pathway on the challenge.
Sure.
And have people try and join that and weigh in on it and make sure that it's funny because when I started the Level Up with Ange challenge, it was like there's some people who were like, yeah, I want to do this. And then they would never report in and I'd have a conversation with them later and they're like, yeah, I didn't do my stuff. So I didn't want to report. And it's like, well, if you actually report, this is actually going to help keep you on track. Yeah. And again, when you've got other people and you're interacting with their report, that again builds that sense of community, even if we're not right there with each other. You can at least commiserate that you didn't do your challenge, or you can get rewarded for having your challenge as well. And honestly, having someone like or even reply to what you are doing gives you that dopamine hit, which we know is addictive, but maybe we need a little bit more dopamine right now anyway.
Hey, if we're going to hijack our dopamine systems to create positive rewards for ourselves, that's a good thing.
Yeah.
That's how dopamine is supposed to work in our body, is to reward us for the things that we're supposed to be doing, so that we do more of it when it's a lot of work. Like, let's face it, exercise is a lot of work. And even when I roll out of bed, I'm like, I got a good friend who said it this way. It's like, you know, that voice in your head when you roll out of bed in the morning and you just want to go back to sleep and hit snooze when you know you should be working out. Just start thinking of that voice as Satan.
Satan.
I died laughing when she told me that. Yeah, it's like, I died when she said it. But you know what? Like 2 mornings later, I was supposed to get out of bed and work out. And her voice was in my head. It's like, oh shit, that's Satan. I got to get out and work out. And it also allowed me to laugh, which made it a little easier to get moving too.
Yeah. But even one thing that was suggested here is working out like if you have to work from home, being in bright sunlight. And
Yes.
I've actually, like, I moved because I'm in my dance studio right now, I moved everything out closer to my modem, but also closer to the sunshine, because I'm like, I'm going to be spending a lot of hours in here. I want to actually be in the sunniest part of my house. And it actually helps you to keep going more than if you're sitting in a dark room with no windows, which I know a lot of people that I talk to on calls, there's like no natural light in where they're sitting, which I think is going to super mess with their circadian rhythms and everything else, which is just going to add to the problem.
And that's another thing we'll talk about is circadian rhythms in our future calls. Mm-hmm. And keeping some sort of normalcy or new normal of life rhythm and how you want to operate is going to be a crucially important part of what we do.
Mm-hmm. There's one question from Amanda here. Are there vitamins that we can take to help with boosting our moods?
Yeah, absolutely. Really. And we'll go into this more when we get into diet and things later on too. Mm-hmm. But as a quick overview, vitamin C, vitamin D are two really important ones you want to keep going right now. They keep your immune system high, mm-hmm. which keeps inflammation low, so you don't have as much cortisol in your body. Those are two big ones you want to look at. If you're feeling a little bit of depression kicking in, St. John's wort is a natural herbal SSRI. That's mm-hmm. something you can look into. Mm-hmm. Vitamin B12 also helps keep your energy levels up as well. So those are the cluster that I have used for myself a lot. I don't use St. John's wort anymore, but years ago when I came out of my sticky situations, that was something I used regularly instead of going the pharmaceutical route. And
I imagine like there's a lot of naturopaths who are going to be doing telemedicine right now.
I would think so.
If you're looking for the natural version of it, I'll actually contact mine as well and just find out if she is willing to participate in this. And actually, she'd very likely be willing to come onto this call, but she's super science-based in everything that she does with her approach. So I'll tell you a little bit about my history with her, because this will give a bit of background on supplementation. But after I had to have my hysterectomy, my body was like completely destroyed because I had massive infection and everything else. So instead of trying to like guess at what she needed to give me, she actually did genetic testing with me. So we did 23andMe, which if any of you have done it, like it's very Mickey Mouse what they send you on the public side of it. But the naturopaths can actually take that information and plug it into a system where they get into actually the chemical cycles that are working or not working in your body. And so everything that she does with me is super targeted to making sure the cycles chemically are still getting the pieces that they need when they're actually shut down. And it's quite amazing how much different I feel, even from when I was well to now, how I feel with all the stuff that she has me on.
Yeah.
And like I know when I'm traveling and I forget my supplements, like a week later, I'm like, oh my gosh, I know that I wasn't taking them, because you can feel a huge difference, right? And
I think we should have her on. I think that'd be really good for everyone to hear this stuff.
Yeah.
Because I mean, we can spot out a little bit of what we know, but to have someone who practices this all the time, let's definitely arrange that.
Yeah. And she did recommend a book. So if you want to get a little bit of understanding of your genetics and why certain things affect you and they don't affect maybe your spouse or your kids, the book called Dirty Genes, DIRTY, and then Genes, GENES, is actually a phenomenal book. And when I was reading it, like while I was waiting for the genetic testing, I'm like, I bet you this cycle's shut down and this one. And it gives you the tools of like, for some people, this kind of food is super healthy. For other people, it's super detrimental. So just because you think you're eating a balanced diet and everything else, you may not be getting what you actually need for your genetic makeup. And certain parts of your genome may actually be shut down because of the chemicals being shut down as well. So yeah, since we all have time on our hands, it would be a good book to dive into, and it's a fairly easy read. There's lots of little quizzes in there to help you to get a quicker understanding of what's actually happening.
Yeah, let's definitely make that happen. I think that'd be really great.
Okay.
One other one I think that's worth throwing out there right now, and I think is going to come more and more in the media, is zinc. Zinc is a great way to boost your immune system too. So the zinc supplements that you can get from your grocery store. There's a lot of stuff that's coming out of where the coronavirus stuff went through first with South Korea and Iran in particular. I know that a lot of the doctors keep talking about zinc as being a massively protective thing. Also a lot of talk about vitamin D being protective for immune system right now too, and that most people who are at risk are vitamin D deficient. And everybody in Canada
deficient now.
Right now we all are. So yeah, getting onto vitamin D right now is a good protective mechanism for your body. Vitamin D and zinc.
Yeah, I'll have her probably talk about that because vitamin D we don't actually absorb anymore, really. We've kind of evolved in a way that it's really hard to actually, you can take as much as you want and it doesn't actually change much in your vitamin D chemistry within your body. So she might have some little tactics on that one too.
That'd be awesome. Perfect.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Any other questions rolling in? I still can't figure out how the live stream on my end is working.
Yay, I'm not the only one who has technical difficulties. Sorry, again, competitive.
Well, it has other faces still frozen where they were half an hour ago.
Yeah.
On
well,
my end.
My feed is still showing the stuff, but we're totally frozen on one of them. Okay, dirty jeans. I'm just going to go grab the book so I can show you guys the book. So it'll help you to find it faster. So, Dr. Major, keep talking.
Oh, man, now I'm on the spot. So unfortunately, I can't see all the messages coming through. That's all on Angela's end. If, for whoever's listening there, what I'd like to hear is some suggestion of additional topic ideas, things that have questions that we can begin addressing on this live stream. We do have a whole bunch of topics that we're planning to cover over the next few weeks. But as questions come up or things specifically you're wanting to know, or even some specific mindset kind of questions and shifting whatever is going on, kind of like we did with Angela yesterday, either send me an email address, it's mpmajor@ualberta.ca, or send one to Angela so that we can begin answering some questions and having the dialogue here on the shows too.
So this is what it's called, Dirty Jeans by Dr. Ben Lynch.
Ben Lynch.
Yeah. Looks like that on the side.
Cool.
Yeah, it's a doozy. It's quite thick, but you can kind of, once you get the gist of like where your problems are, you can start kind of jumping through more pieces of it. So I heard the cuticles on the fingernails are a good indicator of the lack of zinc, the semi-white circle we have. Have you ever heard of that? I remember hearing about that when I was a little kid, but haven't heard about that.
I didn't hear that one.
Yeah.
I heard you had little white spots on your nails can mean vitamin D deficiency. I don't know if that's true or not. That was one of the urban myths I heard going around.
Mm-hmm. I only get the white spots when I've like smucked my finger with a hammer or something, and then it grows out later. That's you. Yep. Awesome. Well, shall we wrap it up there, and we'll see everyone again tomorrow?
Yeah. While you were off, I invited everyone to start submitting questions. So I gave my email address. Why don't you provide yours, or what's the best way to reach out to you so we can be fielding if there's any questions coming, make sure we're addressing them in future episodes. Okay. So I would actually be sending them. I'm going to give my assistant this job. Sorry, Christina. So you can send a message to info@helpgetmepatientsnow.com. So I'll add that in the comments here. And it's not patience like Om kind of patience. It's PATIENTS. Well, you sure you're not the mindset guru? Help get me patience now. Yeah, I'm definitely not the mindset guru. I'm the like gut it out kind of guru. That's my natural response. Help get me patience now.com. Yeah, there you go. Okay. So you can just send those in to Christine and she can keep track of those, or you can make Michael do all the work. Ha. Awesome. So cool. We're going to do some research on cabin fever, and we'll have a report for you back on that tomorrow. But yes, any other questions, please let us know. And thank you for joining in. All right. Have a good day, everyone. Okay. Bye.